In this DaVinci Resolve tutorial, we'll cover all the fundamentals so you can start editing your videos like a pro. Let's dive in. To get DaVinci Resolve, head to the following website. You can click on the link right there in the top right-hand corner. I've also included a link in the description down below, and you'll also see the URL right here on the screen. On this page, there are two different options, DaVinci Resolve and DaVinci Resolve Studio. So what's the difference? DaVinci Resolve is free to download, and that gives you all of the core editing capabilities. I made the first few hundred videos on this channel using the free version. The studio version costs a one-time $295, which gives you access to additional features. You get AI voice isolation to clean up your audio. You get Magic Mask, which tracks a subject or object. You can transcribe the audio in a video. Those are just a few examples that I use all the time. My recommendation, start with free. And if you feel you want more, you can always go with Studio later. To download, click on this button, select your operating system, and then you'll need to fill in some details about yourself. If you're concerned about filling in all of these details, you can check out their privacy policy right here. Once you finish downloading and installing DaVinci Resolve, it'll launch the main project screen. This is how you get back to previous projects that you've worked on, and you could also kick off a brand new project. In the bottom right-hand corner, let's start with a new project. Click on this button that says New Project, and here you can type in a name for your project. I'm pulling together a commercial for the Kevin Cookie Company. I'll type that in and then click on Create. This drops us into the main DaVinci Resolve interface, and at first glance, there's a lot here. But as we go through this video, we'll make sense of it. Down at the very bottom, you'll see that there are 7 different pages in DaVinci Resolve, and by default, it drops us into the Cut page. In this tutorial, we'll spend most of our time in the Edit page. However, we will touch on a few of these other pages as well. So down below, let's click into Edit. To make sure that your interface matches the interface that I have here, that way it's a little bit easier to follow along, let's reset the UI. To do that, up on top, let's click on the menu that says Workspace. And right here, there's the option to reset the UI layout. Let's start by clicking on that. You should have your screen match exactly what you see on my screen. To start working on our project, we first need to bring in some media. So think of videos or audio or images. Over on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see a section that's referred to as the media pool. This is where we place all of our media. Right up on top, if I click on this button, you can toggle it off, and that gives you more screen real estate for everything else. And here I could click on it, and that shows the media pool. By far the easiest way to get media into your media pool is to simply drag and drop it in. Here, for example, I have File Explorer, and here I have a bunch of different video files, I have some music files, and I also have a logo for the Kevin Cookie Company. I could simply select all these files, and then I can drag and drop it into the media pool. Here it tells me that it's going to change the project frame rate to match the frame rate of my clips. I'd like to do that, so I'll click on Change. As a quick note, if you'd like to follow along with this video, I've included all of these same media files in the description down below. Simply click on the link and you could download them, and that way you could follow along as well. Now that we've imported all of the media files, here's a quick tip that'll help improve the performance of DaVinci Resolve. Select the first video clip that we imported and then go all the way to the bottom of the last video clip. Press the Shift key and then select them all. Then right-click on any one of these clips, and there's the option to generate proxy media. So what is proxy media? It's a lower resolution version of all these video clips. And the benefit of that is that editing will be a lot faster and also smoother. When you finally go to render the video, it'll use the original source material, so you'll get the top quality on export. It really just helps with the editing experience. Let's click on this. Once it's all done generating the proxy media, we need to tell DaVinci Resolve to use the proxy media while we're editing. Up on top, let's click on the playback menu. And the second option is proxy handling. Hover over that, and there's an option to prefer proxies. This way it'll use the proxies as we're editing our project. Let's select that. Also, one other optimization to get a smoother editing experience. Click on the playback menu, and right here, there's the option for timeline playback resolution. You can set that to quarter. Now, keep in mind, these are only necessary if you notice that your computer is going a little bit slower while editing. If you have a high-end computer, you don't have to worry about any of these. Let's preview some of the media that we imported into DaVinci Resolve. Let's go over to the media pool, and here I have a clip titled 1.mp4. As I hover over with my mouse, I can move over, and over on the right-hand side, you'll see the source viewer right over here. This allows us to preview a clip that's in our media pool. Here, I'll hover over again, and there we could preview it. I can also double-click on this clip, and that loads it into the source viewer. So right down below, I have a few different controls that I can use to preview these clips. Here, I have an interface that I could use to scrub through. So here I see the beginning of the clip, and I can go all the way through the end. Right over here, I can also play the clip. I'll click on this, and this will play it back. And here I could stop it. I have all these different controls. Let's go back over to the media pool. And over here, I could click on another clip, and then I could preview that in the source viewer. I could also come down and I could click on an audio file. And here we see all the different sound waves that make up that audio file. And you could even click on images and preview what an image looks like. Now that we've looked at some of the individual clips, I want to put the clips together to tell a story. I need to pull together a commercial, and there has to be some type of cohesive message. To do that, we're going to use an area of the screen called the timeline, and you'll see that right here at the bottom of the screen. So what is the timeline? This is where you arrange and edit all these different video clips, audio, and effects in a sequence to create your video or your project. One way to think of it, it's like a workspace where you can move, you can cut, and you can layer different parts of your video together. We're going to use the timeline now. To add a clip to your timeline, go over to your media pool and then find a clip that you would like to add to the timeline. I'll take clip number 1 and simply press and hold, and then you could drag it down to the timeline. And right over here, I'll release. You could place these clips in whatever order you like. For example, I could take clip number 7. I'll press and hold on this, and I'll drag it to the timeline, and then I'll release. Here I could take clip number 2, and I could drag this down to the timeline and release. Over here, I'll scroll over a little bit. You could even select multiple files all at the same time. I'll select these 4 files using the Shift key, and then I could drag them down and release them onto the timeline. And let's scroll over. I can also double click on a clip, and that loads it into the source viewer, just like we saw earlier. I can also bring it from the source viewer directly to the timeline. I'll press and hold on the clip in the source viewer, then drag it down to the timeline, and that also places it there. As I pulled in these different clips, you might have noticed that I have another viewer in the top right-hand corner. Let's go all the way back to the beginning of the timeline. I'll use the scroll bar, and here are the playheads right at the beginning. In the timeline viewer, similar to the source viewer, I have all of my different playback controls. Let's click on play. Here you'll notice that it's now playing back what's on the timeline in the order of all of the clips on the timeline. Here we see the playhead moving, and we see the corresponding image up here. And right over here, we're about to shift clips, and you now see the next clip in the timeline viewer. Let's click on stop, and I'll move the playhead all the way back to the beginning. The benefit of having 2 viewers is that you can view what's in your media pool using one viewer, and then you could view what's on the timeline using another. If for whatever reason you prefer just to have the timeline viewer, in the top right-hand corner, we have this rectangle icon. If you click on this, this will get rid of the source viewer, and then you'll just have the timeline viewer. Click on this, and that returns it to the previous view. You might have noticed that the timeline down below is starting to fill up, and we can't actually view all of the clips on the timeline. Of course, we could go down to the scroll bar, and here we could look through the timeline. Or, one of my favorite tricks, you could also press the middle mouse button, and here you could pan through the timeline. That works really well. If you want to be able to see more of the timeline, right up above, you can adjust the view. So here, I can click on this button to zoom out, or here we could zoom in again. And another quick trick, you can press the Alt key on your keyboard and then scroll your mouse wheel. So here I could zoom out, or I could zoom in. This is one of my favorite shortcut keys. You can press Shift together with Z on your keyboard, and that will fit the entire timeline into this visible area. As an alternative, if you don't like shortcut keys, you can also click on this icon right here, and this is called Full Extent Zoom. 2 more shortcut keys that are helpful as you're working on the timeline. You can press the End key on your keyboard, and that'll bring the playhead all the way to the end. Or you could press the home key and that'll bring the playhead all the way to the beginning. Just a quick way to navigate throughout the timeline. Above the timeline, we have a variety of different tools that help us with manipulating the contents on the timeline. Here, for example, we can see that the selection tool is currently active. It's highlighted in red. If I hover over any one of these tools, you'll see a tooltip appear that tells you what the tool is, and you'll also see the associated shortcut key. With the selection tool, you can, just like the name implies, select different items on your timeline and then move them around. For example, I'll select clip number 2, and here I can lift it up and I could shift it around to a different position. You'll notice that when I move it, it leaves this large gap here. I'll press Ctrl Z to undo, and that'll move it back to where it was. If you would prefer to do a ripple move where it fills in that gap, you can press Ctrl Shift on your keyboard, then select the clip and move it. And here, if I place it at the end, you'll notice that it automatically fills in that gap. Let's go back and move clip number 2. I'll select it, and here I can move it around. You'll notice as I bring it close to clip number 10 on the timeline, it snaps to that clip. Right up above in all these different tools, you'll see this magnet icon, and this is called the snapping tool. You could also use the shortcut key N. If I turn snapping off, look what happens. When I take this clip and I move it, it no longer snaps to the end, and here I could place it right over the other clip. If, however, I turn this on, here, it'll snap right to the end. Let's now try deleting a clip from the timeline. I don't know if I need clip number 3, so I'll select it, and it's currently highlighted. I can press the backspace key on my keyboard and that removes the clip, but you'll notice that it leaves this gap. To remove the gap, I can select the gap and then press the backspace key on my keyboard, and there it's all gone. Let's press Ctrl Z to undo and Ctrl Z once more to bring it back. If I would like to ripple delete instead, which means that it'll just automatically fill that gap, I can press Shift together with backspace and that deletes it. Let's undo once more. An even easier way, you can select the clip, then press the delete key on your keyboard, and that ripple deletes that clip. That's a quick way to get rid of a clip on your timeline. Let's now remove all of the clips from the timeline. I can use my mouse to select everything, or you can also press Ctrl A on your keyboard, and that also selects everything. Then press the delete key, and we should now have a clear timeline. I'd like to start my commercial with clip number 1. Up in the top left-hand corner in the media bin, I see clip number 1. I'll double click on this, and this will also load it into the source viewer. Let's bring clip number 1 down onto the timeline. Here, I'll drag it from the source viewer and then place it on the timeline. And here, if I move the playhead, you'll notice that clip number 1 is about 14 seconds long. If we start with a 14-second long clip, everyone's going to tune out of our commercial. So we need to trim it down. Let's delete this clip from our timeline, and first we'll look at how you can trim clips using the source viewer. Let's quickly preview this entire clip in the source viewer. Here, I'll scrub through the video. We see the milk filling up, and then the milk is placed down, and the cookie is dipped in the milk. Now, I think I just want the cookie dipping in the milk. I think that's a good scene. So I want it to start right at about this point. So how do we start the clip here? Well, right down below, we have these 2 icons. We can mark the in point, and we could also mark the out point. So here, I'll click on this, and you'll notice that this timeline here changes color. I see a light gray, and I also see a darker gray. This means that this clip is currently only going to show the light gray portion if I pull it down to the timeline. Let's take a quick look. Here, if I pull it down, you'll notice the clip is now only 4 seconds. Now, let's go over, and once he's done dipping, I think that's about all I need. So over here, I can also set the out point. Let's set that, and here you see that it'll just include this portion of the clip. I love my shortcut keys. You can also press the I key to set the in point, or the O key to set the out point. Now that I've set both an in point and an out point, let's remove it from the timeline. Here I can now drag it down, and let's press Shift Z to zoom in on it. You'll notice that the clip is only about 3 seconds long, and the clip on the timeline now reflects both the in and out point from the source viewer. Let's now pull another clip down onto the timeline. I'll go up to clip number 2. I love this shot of these cookies on the baking tray. And here, I'll press and hold and then drag it down onto the timeline, and I'll place it after clip number 1. And let's use that shortcut key again to fit all of the timeline into the visible view. I'll press Shift Z, and here I can see all of my clips. As you can see, clip number 2 is also far longer than it needs to be. I also need to trim this down, but let's look at a different way that you can do it. I'll move my mouse to the beginning of clip number 2, and you'll notice that my mouse icon changes. Here I can press and hold, and I can now trim the beginning of the clip. So I'd like to trim it right where the cookies become visible and you have some sunlight shine on them. Now, one of the neat things is as I'm trimming the clip, if you look in the top right-hand corner at the timeline viewer, this shows me exactly where my current position is as I'm trimming. So I want it to start right there. I'll release, and let's go all the way to the end. And here I could also trim the end. You'll notice when I press my mouse button at the end, I get that same icon. And here I could trim the end. And up in the top right-hand corner, I also get a preview of where I'm trimming it to. Now, also, if you look at my mouse cursor right next to that, as I expand or decrease the size of this clip, you'll see how long this clip is. So right there, it's about 3 seconds long. So let's bring it right to there, and then I'll release. So that's another way that you can trim a clip. With the selection mode turned on, here I can press on this clip and I can drag it over and place it right up against clip number 1. Let's now bring another clip down onto the timeline. And you probably guessed it. Let's select clip number 3. I'll press and hold on this and then drag it down to the timeline, and I'll place it right there. You'll notice that this clip is also far too long, and we're going to have to trim it. Let's go over right to about here. I think this is where I want it to start. So let's select the clip, and this time we're going to use my favorite, shortcut keys. Press the Shift key together with open bracket, and that'll trim it. Over here, let's say we leave it on for just a moment or two, maybe right until about there, and then we can press the Shift key and close bracket, and that also trims it. But you'll notice that it leaves that gap. So how do we get rid of that? Well, let's press Ctrl Z to undo and undo again. I'll place my playhead right here. If you'd like to use shortcut keys and trim the beginning and the end as a ripple trim, press Ctrl Shift, open bracket, and there it fills the gap and it also trims it. And let's go right until about here, and I'll press Ctrl Shift, close bracket, and that also trims it. Of course, there's nothing after it, so you didn't have to do the ripple trim, but if there were clips, it would have filled in that gap. You might be thinking to yourself, there's no way you're going to remember all of these shortcut keys. Well, let me make it easy. In the top left-hand corner, let's click on DaVinci Resolve. And right here, there's the option for keyboard customization. And yes, that too also has its own shortcut key. When you click on this, this opens up all the different shortcut keys in DaVinci Resolve. So you can always look through here and start to learn some of these shortcut keys. Now right here, we have some categories of shortcut keys. For example, here's trim. That's what we've been doing. We've been trimming clips. And right within this menu, there's the option for ripple. If I expand this, here we can see the start to playhead is Ctrl Shift open bracket, and then end to playhead is Ctrl Shift close bracket. One of the neat things is you can also set your own shortcut keys. And right here, I've set it so start to playhead is Q and end to playhead is W. So I could use the Q key on my keyboard or the W key to also trim a clip. So let's test this out. I'll close out of this, and right here, let's say I want to trim, let's say the beginning here. I'll press the Q key, and that trims it. Here, I can press the W key, and that'll also trim it. You can set the keyboard shortcuts to whatever you would like to make it easy. Let's now go up to the media pool, and let's pull in clip number 4. Here, I'll select this and drag it down to my timeline, and let's place it right there. Let's try splitting this clip, and to do that, we can use something called the blade tool. Right up here, we have an icon that looks like a blade. You can also press B, and when I click on this, my mouse cursor changes to a blade when I hover over a clip. Let's say I want to cut this clip right at about this point. I can press with my mouse, and that splits it. To switch back to the selection mode over here, I can click on this, and now I could select again. So I could select this, and here I could remove that portion. As an alternative, over here, I could place my playhead where I would like to split, and then I could press Control together with backslash, and when I press that, that also splits the clip right at that point, and there I could remove that portion of the clip. So you have lots of different options. Now that you know some of the fundamental editing tools, let's continue working on this commercial by adding the talk track. Over in the media pool, here I have an AI-generated talk track or voiceover for this commercial. I'll press and hold on this clip, and here I can drag it over. And I have another track for audio. I'll release right here, And now you can see the entire audio track. It's about 30 seconds long. Let's now press the home key, and that'll move the playhead to the very beginning of the timeline. And as another shortcut key, you can press the space bar to play back the timeline. Let's have a quick listen at the talk track.
Craving something sweet? Let the Kevin Cookie Company make your day delicious.
That sounds okay, but I think the audio levels are just a little bit low. To adjust the audio levels, let's jump over to the Fairlight page. The Fairlight page gives you full control over the audio of your project. Right up above, I can see audio track number 1. And if I press the shift key and scroll my mouse wheel, I can expand this so I can see the waveforms better. Now, you'll notice they might be a little bit low. In fact, let's press spacebar, and over on the right-hand side, we can check the levels. Let's press spacebar to see where they're landing.
From our classic chocolate chip to mouth-watering seasonal flavors, each cookie is made.
So that actually looks fairly good. In general, you typically want audio to land between -10 dB and -15 dB, and it looks like we were sitting right at around there. I can move it up just a tiny bit. If I click on this line, here I could adjust it up or I could adjust it down. So you can get the audio levels exactly where you need them to be. As a quick tip, you can also right-click on one of the audio tracks, and here you have the option to normalize the audio levels. But I think for now, these are fine, so I'll click out of this. Within the Fairlight page, you have all sorts of different tools to get your audio to sound exactly how you would like it to sound. For example, let's go up on top and we could click on Effects. And this opens up all sorts of different audio effects that you can use. For example, maybe you have a little bit of an S sound when you're speaking. You can use what's called a de-esser. Here you simply drag this effect, and here I could drop it onto audio track number 1. And when I release, I have various controls that I can use to configure the de-esser. For example, I'll select this dropdown and let's go with a male S, since it's a male speaking. And then I could close out of this. Over on the right-hand side, you can see that I currently have this effect applied to track number 1. You could also adjust things like the dynamics. Here, if I double click on this, perhaps you want to turn on a compressor, an expander, a gate. You have all of those options. Let's close out of this and let's jump back to the edit page. Back within the edit view, I'd now like to add a few more clips onto my timeline. So over here, I see clip number 5, and let's try trimming this directly in the source viewer. I'll press I, and right over here, I'll press O, and then I could drag this down onto my timeline. It's still a little bit long, so let's try trimming right here. I'll use the trim handle. Over here, I see clip number 6. Let's pull that down, and this is far too long, so let's try trimming, and here I could pull it over, and let's trim it some more. I think that's a good spot. Now, with clip number 7, let's pull this down to the timeline. Now, you'll notice when I pull it down, it also has audio attached to it, but I only want the video file. So let's press escape and that'll cancel. Now, right up above, I'll double click on this and this loads clip number 7 in the source viewer. And when I hover over it, you'll see this overlay down at the bottom. This allows me to drag in either just the video or just the audio. So here, for example, I could click on the video and now it'll just pull in the video file. Or alternatively, I could also just pull in the audio file. I just want the video. So over here, I'll click on the video file and this pulls it onto my timeline. Let's press Shift Z to fit all the content. And I think this portion looks good. So I'll press Q and let's go right until about there. And then I can press W and that trims the clip. Now that you know all the essentials of getting clips onto the timeline and trimming the different clips, why don't you go through and add all the different clips to the timeline? You could adjust them and have them stay on for the right amount of time. Each clip is numbered, so you'll know the order in which they should appear, but you could also adjust the order if you think another clip would fit better at that portion of the video. So go through and do that, and I'll do the same, and then let's rejoin. I've now added all the different clips to my timeline, and I think it matches the talk track fairly well. I think what's missing though is we need some music. So to add music, let's hover over this middle divider between all of the different video tracks and all of the different audio tracks. And here I can adjust the size so we can see more of the audio view. And over on the left-hand side in the media pool, I have 2 different songs. I wasn't quite sure which one to go with, so I figured I'd leave it up to you. Over here, I'll select one of the tracks and let's place it into the project. And over here, I could select another audio track and I'll place this in the project as well. We can now listen to these different songs independently. So over here, I can mute track number 3, and this will allow us to listen to the talk track with audio number 2, or the second song. This is a more serious song, or more of an epic sounding song. Let's play it back to hear what it sounds like.
Craving something sweet? Let the Kevin Cookie Company make your day delicious. From our class.
Well, that's a cool sound. I like that. Let's now mute the second track and then unmute the third track. And let's listen to this one.
Craving something sweet? Let the Kevin Cookie Company make your day delicious.
This one's a little more upbeat and fun, so it really depends on what type of feeling you want to go with. I think I'll stick with audio track number 2. So over here, I'll mute the third track and let's unmute the second track. I'll stick with this one, but it's up to you which song you would like to use. With both of these tracks, the levels of the music compared to the talk track were just a little bit loud, and we need to balance that out better. So down below in the pages, let's jump back to the Fairlight page. With music, you generally want it to be around -30 dB when you have some type of talk track. That way you can hear the speaking very clearly on top of the music. So let's jump right to about this portion and then play it back to see where we're landing in terms of the levels. Let's hit the spacebar to play.
The best bite every time. So why wait?
You'll see with the music that we're peaking right at around -10 dB, and I really want to be right around -30 dB. With the music track down here, I can now adjust the volume. So let's play it back and I'll adjust as it's playing.
Treat yourself with someone special to a box of Kevin Cookie Company cookies. Order now and taste the love in every cookie. The Kevin Cookie Company. Bringing joy one cookie at a time.
Over on the right-hand side, as the narrator is speaking, you'll see that we were peaking around that -30. I'll go back and then focus on this area in the bottom right-hand corner.
So why wait? Treat yourself or someone special to a box of Kevin Cookie Company.
That way you can really hear the speech, but you could also hear the music in the background. I think these levels are pretty good, so let's jump back to the edit page. Let's now make a few tweaks to the video. If I jump forward to clip number 12, you'll notice that there are very subtle black lines on the top and also on the bottom, but none of the other video clips in my project have that, so I'd like to remove it here. I'll select this clip, and in the top right-hand corner, we can adjust the attributes or the properties of this clip using the inspector. Let's click on this. Within the inspector, I can adjust all the different properties. For example, the zoom, the position, the pitch, the yaw. I could crop the video clip. Over here, I could change the speed. I could stabilize it. All sorts of different options. But I want to zoom in just a tiny bit to get rid of those black lines. So over here, I'll place my mouse within this zoom rectangle. And then over here, I can press and hold and move it over to the right, and that'll zoom it in. If I go in the other direction, it'll zoom out. But I want to zoom in just a little bit. Let's place it right at about there. Now, if I were to zoom in far too far and I want to undo that, over here, I could click on this icon to undo, or I could double click on zoom, and that will zoom out to the original setting. But let's zoom in just a tiny bit. Let's place it right at about there. I think that looks good. Let's now jump forward to the last clip on my timeline. As a quick trick, you can press the down arrow and that'll jump to the end of the clip, or the up arrow to jump to the beginning. But let's press down and that'll bring me right to the beginning of the last clip on the timeline. This is a vertical video. So here we have these black lines on the left and also on the right, and I would like to remove them. So just like we did with the previous clip, with this clip selected on the timeline, we have all the properties in the inspector. And over here, I can zoom in and you can get a very large picture of me. I'll zoom in to about 3.2. And then I can also adjust the position. So over here, I'll press and hold in this rectangle. And here I can move it down. So the commercial finishes with a shot of me. I like that as well. Looking at this clip, I feel like it's just a little bit cold and I would like it to be a little bit warmer. So with this clip selected, let's go down to the bottom and click into the color page. This opens up the color page, and here you have full control over the look and the feel of your project. We're only going to scratch the surface on some of the things that you can do. Now, I want my clip to be just a little bit warmer. So down in the bottom left-hand corner, we can open up the color wheels. And here's a category called gamma. So over here, I could take this and I could adjust it a little bit over to the left-hand side, and that'll make it a little bit warmer. If I want to, let's say, increase the brightness, here we have a category called gain. And over here, I can move this slider, and here we can make the image brighter. But that's far too bright. I don't need it that bright. So to undo, I can click on this icon right up here, and that brings it back to what it was originally set at. Now, I've adjusted the gamma over here. I could also adjust the curves. So let's add a slight S-curve over here. That'll add a little bit of contrast. Now, as you go through and you make all these different changes, you might be wondering, well, how does this compare to what I originally had? To see what you originally had, you can select the node up here in the top right-hand corner and then press Control D on your keyboard, and that brings back the original version. Or here, I'll press Control D again, and that brings back the new version. I think this warmer tone looks better, and I'm satisfied with it. So down below, let's click back into the edit page. Back on the edit page, you'll notice that the songs go on far beyond the end of the commercial, so I need to trim these. Just like we could trim video clips, you can also trim audio clips. So over here, I'll place my playhead at the end, and here I can select both the songs, and let's use that shortcut key. I'll press W on my keyboard, and that trims them both to the playhead. Nice. As the video is wrapping up, I'd like to show the Kevin Cookie Company logo. So let's go to the end to see when we should have it appear. Let's play.
The Kevin Cookie Company, bringing joy one cookie at a time.
I like that. I think as soon as he mentions Kevin Cookie Company, that's when I'd like to have the logo fade in. Over in my media pool, here I have the logo PNG. I can simply press and hold on that, and I'll drag it over to my timeline, and I'll place it on video track number 2. Let me place it right here, and then I could trim it just like we've been trimming all the video clips. Let's put it right here so it starts right at that point. I placed the logo file on the track above these video files. So what does that do? Well, let's move the playhead here, and we'll see the logo now sits on top of the video clip underneath. Think of this as layers of a cake. Whatever appears on a higher video track appears over whatever's on the video track underneath. Of course, I don't want the logo to appear this large, otherwise you can't even see the faces underneath. With the logo selected on the timeline, up in the top right-hand corner, you can open up the inspector, and here you can adjust all the properties of the image. So here, for example, I can adjust the zoom, so I can make it smaller. Here, I can make it larger, so maybe right at about that size. And right over here, I could also adjust the position. Now, if you don't want to click and set numbers over here, you can also just move it with your mouse. In the timeline viewer in the bottom left-hand corner, we have this icon. This allows you to transform. I'll click on this, and this opens up all these little handles around my image. I can now move the image wherever I want on the screen. Let's place it right at about there, so it's right in the center. I like that position. Over here, I can turn this off, and that'll now lock it to that position. Let's now play the ending to see how this looks.
The Kevin Cookie Company.
Ooh, I don't know if I just want the logo to appear like that. I'd rather have it fade in. Luckily, that's really easy to do. With the logo selected, you'll notice these white icons in both top corners of the logo. Now I can press and hold on that and drag it over. And look at that. That's adding a fade to this image. Now when I play it,
Kevin Cookie Company,
you'll see that it gradually fades in. You can do that same technique with any other type of clip as well. You can have a video file fade in or out. You can even use it with an audio file if you want audio to fade in or out. But I'm okay with that as it is. I only want to apply it to the logo, so I'll only use the fade here. Let's now continue playing the video.
Bringing joy one cookie at a time.
Ooh, that's a little bit of a hard cut between the kids eating a cookie and then me appearing with a cookie. I'd rather have a nice, smooth transition. To insert a transition in the top left-hand corner here, we could close out of the media pool and let's click on Effects. This opens up all of our different effects, and there's a category called Video Transitions. When I click on this, we have all sorts of different transitions that we could insert into this project. I'll move the playhead between these two clips, and now I can hover over any one of these transitions, and I can preview what this transition will look like. So there, I could go through and look at all of these. Now, a lot of them are a little cheesy. I don't think I'd want to use them. Let's see which one I might like. I think this cross dissolve is a little more classy. So to insert this transition, I can press and hold, drag it down to my timeline, and let me place it right here. So it's at the beginning of me eating the cookie. Now let's play it back to see what this looks like.
Joy one cookie at a time.
Ooh, I like that. Now let's zoom in a little bit. I'll press Alt and scroll my mouse wheel to zoom in on the timeline. And over here, I can click on the transition. And in the top right-hand corner in the inspector, we could adjust all the different properties of the transition. For example, maybe I wanted to ease in and out. Let's select that and let's play it. Over here, I could also adjust the length of the transition. Do I want it to be quicker or do I want it to be a little bit slower?
Wait, one cookie at a time.
Let's make it a little bit longer. I like that. I also think that this video needs some text that calls out our website at the end. Let's pull this down so we don't see as much of the audio and we can see more space above all the video tracks. To insert text over on the left-hand side, also within effects, let's click into titles. Within titles, we have all sorts of different options. And here you could hover over and you can see a sample of what the text looks like. And you have lots of different text options with animations. So over here, all sorts of different options. Now, I just want to insert some basic text that calls out our website. So over here, I'll click on Text Plus, and then I can drag it down onto the timeline. And let's have it end with everything else. So I'll trim the end of the text. Let's put it right to about there. Let me make sure that everything is ending at the same time. To edit the text, simply click on it, and in the top right-hand corner, you'll now see all of the properties of the text. If you don't see this, you can click on the inspector to open it up, and here we see all the different text settings. Currently, it just says custom title, but I want to show the website for the Kevin Cookie Company. So over here, I'll type in our website address, thekevinccookiecompany.com. Now, with this text plus object that I inserted, I have all sorts of controls over what this text looks like. For example, I could adjust things like the color. Here, I could adjust the size. Maybe let's make it a little bit smaller. I can also adjust the layout. If I go up to the top, I'll click on the layout tab, and let's try moving it down. Maybe I'll put it at the bottom. Over here, I could also click into the shading, and let's click on number 3 for black shadow. Let's turn on a shadow so it's a little bit easier to see this text. Now you have all sorts of different controls to get the text to look exactly what you would like it to look like. Now, I think this looks good. Now let's play it back to see how this looks.
The Kevin Cookie Company.
Let's adjust this so it starts right when the logo comes in. And I'd also like the text to fade in with the logo. So over here, I get that same icon, and here I could adjust it. So now they'll fade in together. Let's take a look.
The Kevin Cookie Company. Bringing joy one cookie at a time.
Oh, not bad. Let's now press Shift Z so we can see the entire timeline. And in the top left-hand corner, let's close out of effects just to give us a little bit more screen real estate to work with. Let's press the home key to go all the way back to the beginning of the timeline, and let's play it.
Craving something sweet? Let the
In the very first clip on the timeline, I think it would be nice if there was just a subtle zoom in on that milk and those cookies. So let's select this clip on the timeline. And in the top right-hand corner, we have the inspector. If you don't see it, simply click on this icon, and this will show you all of the different properties. Let's add a slight zoom. And to do that, we're going to use something called Keyframes. Right over here, I see the property for zoom, and currently it's set to 1, which is just the default zoom. Over here, I can set a keyframe. What that means is this is the position at this specific point in time. On my timeline, I'll press the down arrow, and then let's go back 1 frame so I'm at the very end of this clip. And over here, you see that the zoom here too is currently 1, but I can now set another keyframe, and I can define what the zoom should be at this point in time. So over here, I'll click on the zoom, and let's zoom in ever so slightly. So now if I go to the very beginning of the timeline, let's play it back, and you'll see a very subtle zoom.
Craving something sweet? Let the Kevin...
I think that's a nice touch. I think this commercial has come together really nicely, and I'm ready to deliver it. To do that, down at the very bottom, let's click on the page titled Deliver. On the export page, you can configure all sorts of different settings for exporting or rendering your file. To keep things simple, over here, you could also scroll over, and you could also export using the preferred settings for all these different services. I want to export to YouTube, so I'll click on this, and right up on top, I need to give my file a name. I'll type in the Kevin Cookie Company commercial. You can choose a location, the resolution, the frame rate, the format, but all of this here looks good. Down at the very bottom, I can now add it to my render queue. And when I click on that, over on the right-hand side, I have my render queue. To start rendering my video and to get an MP4 of this commercial, down below, I'll click on Render All. Right up above, it's now finished rendering my file. It only took 5 seconds to render it. That was really fast. Now I can navigate to where I saved my file, and I could watch it. Let's have a quick look.
Craving something sweet? Let the Kevin Cookie Company make your day delicious. From our classic chocolate chip to mouth-watering seasonal flavors, each cookie is made with love and baked to perfection. We use only the finest ingredients because you deserve the best bite every time. So why wait? Treat yourself or someone special to a box of Kevin Cookie Company cookies. Order now and taste the love in every cookie. The Kevin Cookie Company. Bringing joy one cookie at a time.
Great job. You now know the basics of editing in DaVinci Resolve. Of course, there's always more to learn. In fact, I'm learning new things in DaVinci Resolve every single day. Let me know down in the comments what else you'd like me to cover in future videos. To watch more videos like this one, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.